I need to share with you a very important message. I need you to listen very, very carefully to what I'm about to say. I'm going to show you the words on the screen. If you're thinking about doing external communications in a higher education setting, remember this message, okay? It is very important to have a firm grasp of your institution's CMS. You also need to know the PPC messaging that will work in your advertising. Also, be aware of the SMEs in your institution and leverage them in your SEO. It is then vital to communicate this information to DAR, ONC, and the RDs. Did you get that? Are you with me? Confused? Probably, I imagine that nobody understood what I just said. And that's because I was speaking in jargon. And there's actually a select group of individuals who would have understood what I said, but mainstream, everyday audiences would have no idea what I just said. But obviously the point is to show you what it feels like to be the recipient of a message that is polluted with jargon. And frankly, I think that is something that many academics struggle with, and for good reason. A lot of times when you are publishing in journals, you're obviously encouraged to use certain terminology, and everybody that is reading that publication understands that terminology. The problem is that you use the same language that you're using in journals to communicate in everyday external communications. People are going to have the same reaction that you probably just had when I communicated that opening message. So I want to show you a few kind of tips to help you think about when you're using jargon, how to overcome it, and also to share with you some advice from some journalists and a professor. So first, let's define what jargon is. And I looked up the term in preparation for this course and thought it'd be interesting to share it with you. And so it's a hybrid language, and this is according to Merriam's dictionary. It's a hybrid language or dialect simplified in vocabulary and grammar and used for communication between peoples of different speech. It is the technical terminology or characteristic idiom of a special activity or group, and it is the obscure and often pretentious language marked by long words. I wanted to share with you something I read from Richard Branson. Richard Branson, of course, is the founder of the Virgin Group, and he wrote a really interesting post on his LinkedIn profile about jargon. And here's what Richard Branson said. Some people love speaking in jargon, using fancy words, and turning everything into acronyms. Personally, I find this slows things down, confuses people, and causes them to lose interest. It's far better to use a simple term and commonplace words that everyone will understand rather than showing off and annoying your audience. In some industries, technical terms are everywhere, especially in the financial sector. As somebody who didn't understand the difference between net and gross for many years, despite running several billion-dollar companies, I have always preferred when financial issues are explained clearly. That coming from Sir Richard Branson. Jargon really is your number one enemy in terms of all aspects of external communications, and simplicity is really your friend. The tricky part is, a lot of times we don't know when we're speaking in jargon. I'm sure you've been in those instances where, you might be speaking to someone who understands a certain way of communicating, and then somebody else joins that conversation and they're completely lost. And the key is really to know your audience and then to adapt your vocabulary accordingly. So let me share with you some tips and some perspectives from two different journalists. The first journalist I want to highlight is Catherine Mangan. She covers education for the Chronicle of Higher Education. And here's what Catherine said. And I asked her specifically for this course if she could give some tips related to jargon. Catherine said, I'd advise someone to be as relaxed and informal as possible and to explain concepts the way he or she might to a family member or friend who isn't an academic. To the extent possible, avoid academic jargon, keep the tone conversational, and use specific examples to illustrate your points. The more interesting or colorful, the better. And then I want to share with you something that Menachem Wecker said. He used to write for US News and World Report covering education, now is a blogger and also writes for the Houston Chronicle covering religion. And here's what Menachem said. I'd say one area that I think can go more smoothly relates to jargon. Professors, when they are talking and writing for their peers, focus very carefully on accuracy, and often that's very nuanced. I sometimes have to tell professors that the conversation will work best if they explain things to me as they would to a spouse's friend at a cocktail party or a distant relative at a family gathering. These aren't conversational muscles that professors often exercise, but they seem not to realize that they are going to lose me if they don't dumb down some of the ways that they explain things. So I thought it was interesting for you to hear that from two respected journalists who cover education. I now wanted to share with you something from your side as an academic, some best practice from a professor I used to work at when I was at Duke. His name is Campbell Harvey, and he was really, and still is, very, very good at communicating to the media. And I asked if he could share a tip for this course, and I love this example that he provided. And so here is what Campbell said. And again, he's a finance expert, and he deals with a lot of very technical, complex subjects, but he has a brilliant ability to break things down in a simple way. Here's what he said. What I usually do is compare a complicated situation to a simple situation that everyone in the audience would understand. For example, in explaining the largest heist in history, the Mt. Cox Bitcoin theft, I said Mt. Cox was like your community bank, except there were no tellers or security personnel, no cameras, and a vault of cash with the door wide open. To bring this home and to apply this for you personally, I wanted to share with you the 3 S's when you're thinking about jargon. And those 3 S's are to be short, to be simple, and to have stories. How can you put this into practice? Here you go. Simple. Test out your ideas on your family members, ideally who aren't academics. See if your family members understand the concepts that you are trying to communicate. Second, what kind of stories can you tell related to each of the different concepts? Again, simple, something that everyday people would understand, just as Campbell Harvey's example of the open bank that had no security personnel or tellers available. And then short, what is your elevator pitch? So what is that concept, that research paper? How can you explain that research paper in an elevator ride that you would have with a colleague or anyone for that matter? I encourage you to put this into practice and to try this out yourself. I've included this exercise in the worksheet for you, and really encourage you to think about a piece of research that you have that's forthcoming or that has recently been published, or to think about a view that you might have on a particular topic that is in the news and it relates to your area of expertise, and really think about how you can apply the 3 S's. How can you make it simple? How can you tell a story around it that everyone will understand? How can you keep it short and sweet and getting to the point quickly and concretely? And I think that's going to help you so much, not only in terms of dealing with media, but in all of your external communications. And I would also say that if you are able to do this in external communications, I'm pretty confident that it's going to help you in the classroom, because if you can explain these concepts and use the same stories that you might use in your external communications, if you can apply that in the classroom, I'm really sure it's going to go a long way and be quite beneficial for you. In our next video, we're going to take this to the next level, and we are going to talk about how to deliver memorable sound bites. Look forward to seeing you there. Thanks so much.